Moving on to now the gubernatorial part of our session. First of all, I would like to introduce John Gregg. After working for 2 Fortune 500 companies in energy field, John was elected in 1986 to represent Southwest Indiana in the State House. He served in the Indiana House for 10 years and became elected to Speaker of the House in 1996. In 6 years as Speaker, John worked in both political parties to cut taxes, balance budgets, expand Indiana's economy, and better support public schools, all the while seeing record surpluses. In 2002, he decided to spend a little bit more time with his children and family and retired from public office. Following his tenure as interim president at Vincennes University, he returned to his law practice, wrote a book, and hosted popular weekend radio talk shows. In 2012, John was re-entered political arena and was Democratic Party's nominee for governor of Indiana, coming up just short of victory in the closest race for that office in 50 years. In May of 2015, John announced his plans to seek the governorship again, pledging to repair the damage incumbent Mike Pence has done to Indiana's image and to be a leader for everyone. As governor, he will focus on attracting, retaining, and supporting business and pay Hoosier workers a living wage. John is committed to working with, not against, public elected state superintendent of instruction, teachers, administrators, parents, and other interested parties to improve public education and open the doors for all Indiana students. Finally, he will work to build our infrastructure, not just our crumbling roads and bridges, but also our workforce, broadband capacity, renew energy opportunities, healthcare system. So regarding wherever you live in Indiana, Hoosiers will have a chance to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Gregg.
Thank you. I hope I don't shut everything off by closing that. Thank you. It's good indeed to be here today. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak with you. I'm letting my eyes slowly adjust. I see there's a lot of follically impaired people like me out there because it's bouncing back on me, so I'll do a little back at you. First of all, thank you for what you do. And when you have a bad day in this business, and I know y'all have to have bad days in this business, just remember that Dick Lugar got his start as a school board member. And I think that's something to say. And I've mentioned that to Senator Lugar a time or two, and I think that shows the importance of what people on school boards do. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my school corporation in my area. In fact, I've already seen one of the board members, North Knox School Corporation down in Knox County. I'd certainly be remiss if I didn't give a little special nod to them and say it's good to see them. Well, this has been a wild year in politics. A lot of changes. I'm the only thing that's not changed. I'm still John Gregg, and I'm still running for governor. Let me tell you, thank you, Mother. I appreciated that clap back there. Let me share with you briefly why I am running for governor again. And in the introduction, it mentioned the closest race in 50 years. I like to say I finished second because, it was a 3-person race. That sounds a little better. But let me share with you, I give this credit to my wife. I'm running because I want to serve as governor. Not be governor, not the title, not the trappings, but to serve as governor. That means take that servant's heart, focus on the issues that many times divide us, try to bring us together, forge through collaboration and cooperation, taking the best ideas and moving Indiana forward. I feel that I'm ready to serve as governor. I have been president at Vincennes University. We expanded the curriculum when I was at Vincennes University, and we worked to change not only our curriculum, but everything we could do to keep college affordable. I served as Speaker of the Indiana House for 6 years, and contrary to what you may hear, every piece of legislation that ever landed on the governor's desk had support from Democrats and Republicans. Every piece of legislation, every budget, every highway bill, every education bill, every bill affecting criminal and civil law. And 2 of the 6 years I was Speaker, there were 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. That's the closest experience I've ever had to serving on a school board. I've owned a small business. I've been involved in my family's business. As mentioned, I have worked in the energy business, and I'm very proud that I worked full-time and earned 2 graduate degrees while working full-time, finishing up earning a law degree over the age of 30. I've met a payroll, I've managed people, and I've dealt with large, complex bureaucracies. And along with my running mate, Christina Hale, we're going to remain focused on policies and accomplishing the big mission, which means we're going to work on improving Indiana's economy. And that means we're going to deal on the infrastructure. We're going to deal on the economy. We're going to talk about public safety, and we're going to talk about schools. And we're going to make sure Indiana is a welcoming and an inclusive state. Let me talk real quickly about 3 of the points before we delve into education. On the economy, I'm going to refer today at different times, asking you to look back on our webpage at greggforgovernor.com. I do that because in a short presentation or in a 30-second commercial, you can't really delve into the nitty-gritty. But we've got a 35-point economic development plan that's been praised by business leaders. We focus on jobs that pay a living wage. We want to focus on the quality of job we've created, not the number of jobs created. We want to focus on those high-wage, high-growth job areas. We want to restore Indiana's image and be able to attract talent, retain the talent, bring more young people into the state. Those who come to school here, we want to keep here. Those who've left, we want to come back. We want to stop driving businesses away. We believe that our economy can be better with a skilled workforce, and that means we also need to have an adult conversation about why we're long overdue in not having a pre-kindergarten program. We want to, thank you. We want to work with small business, and we want to do everything we can to unleash that entrepreneurial spirit in Indiana. Now, my running mate and I have unleashed a $3.2 billion plan for infrastructure. Over the course of 10 years, that's $3.2 additional billion, $3.2 billion that doesn't require a tax increase. Over the course of that, there would be 54,000 jobs. We would increase local spending for our local communities, our cities, towns, and counties. But it also includes more than roads and bridges. It includes ports. It includes airports, water ports. It includes the small airports in many of our communities, but it also includes water, sewer, rail. It includes drinking water, industrial water, broadband, cell towers, quality of life issues. The other thing we talk about that's something I wish we didn't have to talk about in Indiana, but we have to talk about a drug epidemic. I live at Sanborn, Indiana, and most of you have never heard of it, but it's a small town like many places in Indiana. And I live a couple mile east of town out in the river bottoms. My boys tell me that I can buy heroin in my hometown cheaper than you can buy a 6-pack of beer. Now, we're number 1 in methamphetamines in the state of Indiana. We're number 5 in heroin, and we're 15th in drug overdoses. This is something we're going to have to deal with. It's not going away. No one piece of legislation is going to make it all go away. But we do have to have an adult conversation and admit that what we are doing is not working. We have a drug problem of legal drugs and illegal drugs, the opioids and the heroin and meth. We're going, and we have proposed in our public safety program, a 7-point plan, and the very first one deals with what we need to do. We need to treat the drug problem as a mental health issue, as an addiction issue, as a medical problem. Now, let me be clear. To the drug dealer, the drug trafficker, that violent criminal, they deserve what they get. But there are many, many, many Hoosiers that are no risk, low risk, first-time offenders. And it's a there but the grace of God go you or I. I don't want a show of hands, but we've all known people. We've worked with people. We have family members. We worship with people who've dealt with this problem. And right now, we need to have that adult conversation where we sit down, the judges, the prosecutor, the local police, the state police. We sit down the mental health experts, the physicians, but we also sit down the educators. We also sit down the workforce development people and our civic and community leaders and talk about what we need to do to identify these people that rehabilitation works and move on that direction. Every dollar we put in rehabilitation saves $4 in health spending and $7 in the justice system. We cannot build enough prisons to build our way out of this. Now let me talk about education. I want you to know that on election night, and with your help, when my running mate and I win, that is the moment that the war on public education ends. The war is over. And I've realized from traveling around the state that you cannot talk jobs and improving our infrastructure, making our communities safer, raising that standard of living in Indiana without talking about education. It is truly the foundation of the future. And we've released an education program, K through 12, where we discuss this program in great detail. We also talk about our pre-kindergarten program, but it starts with communication and respect. As governor, I'll work with our teachers, our administrators, and our board members. I'll work with you, not against you. I view you all as part of the solution, not the problem. And that's been a little change from the last few years. No matter what you're told, you're going to have a seat at our table. Our schools get better only with input, only with local control. Why in the world the legislature and our administration the last few years has decided that they should be the local school board is beyond me. But I really think that you have a business in making our schools better. You, like me, want to serve, and our solution lies with you sitting at the table and having a seat. I respect your role, and I will respect your expertise. My door will always be open to the men and women that serve in Indiana's school boards. I will work with our state school superintendent regardless of who that is, because it can't continue to be about politics. We've turned education into about you can clap there. It can't be about politics. There should not be one Democrat idea nor one Republican idea. There shouldn't be one conservative idea or one liberal idea. Ideology in education has no place. It should be about ideas. It should be about the pupils and not about politics. My agenda is pretty straightforward. It is universal, optional, preschool for all 4-year-olds, and it's not an unfunded mandate. How's that sound? We have found through reversions in the state budget of over $230 million, $150 million for the legislature to pick and choose from where they think these monies could go. When we started talking about pre-kindergarten last year, I started out saying 38 states have it. Today we now say 42 states have it. Isn't it time we're in front rather than following from behind? Don't you agree? I think it's time we lead. We want to restore respect to teachers and our board members and our administrators. We want to stop blaming them. We want to fix the testing mess while still keeping accountability. I'm old enough that when the ISBA test was approved, I voted against it 29 years ago. I called teachers. At that point, I was young enough that I still had school teachers that taught me and were teaching high school. And they said, John, we're all for accountability, but we worry that with accountability, it will quickly go from accountability to, well, everything will hinge on that test. where they'll start grading the school. They'll start tying our income to it. They won't take into effect how many students come from different incomes, how many students English is a second language, and everything will write on that test. Guess what? Sound familiar? It does. We can still have accountability, and I've never met a board member, a superintendent, or a teacher that doesn't want accountability. But we can fix that mess, and we wouldn't be in that mess had you all had a seat at the table. You know it, and I know it. Very much so. And we want to stop. We do want to stop the teaching to the test. We want to better align Indiana's K through 12 education and our workforce development and economic development standards. As I've traveled the state from Mount Vernon to Hammond on the border, all I hear from people is saying that they have job opportunities. Not one businessman or woman talks about our taxes. They always talk about the need for skilled or skilled employees. We need to be working with education and educators to better align our education system with our needs. We need to encourage more people to go into the STEM and STEAM education fields. These are important areas. We need to do everything we can to make college more affordable, and we need to restore local control. That is so critical in this. School boards should do more than hire and fire coaches. School boards are the voice of reasons and the voice of what our local schools are about. They're called local school boards for a reason. In closing, I want you to know that I'm about ideas, not ideology. And contrary to what any other name may be, the I-STEP test isn't gone. It's not going to go away. Look for that Trojan horse. Just keep your eye on it, because they're going to try to bring it back the same way. If you want to be involved, if you want a say in your local schools, you need to look beyond the party label. Look at the last 8 to 10 years, what has happened at our schools. I'm well aware that I'm a Democrat in a Republican state. I see a lot of heads nodding on that one. Political parties and the extremes are what's the problem in this country. The extremes in both parties pull us. It's about meeting in the middle. It's about collaborating and cooperation, and it's about the good of the people. It's not about ideology. It's not about political parties. It's about moving Indiana forward. I'm honored to be here with you today. I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you, and I want to again thank you for everything you do as a proud graduate of a public school, as the father of 2 boys who graduated from a public school. I thank you for your public service.
We have a few questions, if you don't mind, John. These were submitted, a number of them actually. These are kind of the main category ones. First one, what is your plan to address our current teacher shortage?
Sure. You know, 4 years ago I traveled the state, and we pulled it up in clippings, and I said, we're going to have a teacher shortage in the state of Indiana. This teacher shortage has been created by policies enforced on the state of Indiana over the last 8 to 10 years by the current administration and preceding ones. This teacher shortage is created, and it is going to continue as long as you demean and downgrade a profession, as you blame a profession, as you blame our public schools, as you deny the individuals involved with our public schools a seat. This is going to continue. The first thing we do is by showing respect to the administrators, the board members, and the teachers, and offering them a seat. And then they're going to see what you all think, what you all believe is going to matter, because you're going to see people are listening and paying attention. That's the first step that we do. The second step is when we can still be accountable, but we don't have to be one of the handful of states that still gives a letter grade to schools. We can do so many things in having accountability without tying the teachers' pay. I have people come up to me. I had a young couple and a third person in Tell City 3 weeks ago, all under the age of 30. A math teacher, a guidance counselor, 2 shortages. Most math teachers are my age, to be candid. Young person, under 30, and an elementary school teacher. All were not teaching this year. They said they had had enough. You hear that every day. I hear it. I have young men and women coming up to me all across the state of Indiana saying, what are we to do? We really wanted to teach. We have got to get back. We've created this shortage, and once we start treating this profession with respect, we're going to see a difference. And that's one of our keystones. This problem was created, and we can, by just showing some decent respect, we'll take care of that problem.
Very good. What is your opinion regarding the expansion of charter schools and voucher programs?
Sure. There's a pie, and that pie is only going to be so big, and right now we keep cutting more slices out of it. You know what? Anybody realize that besides me? I know you all do. Let me share with you one of the biggest things that I think that we've seen happen over the last couple of years has been this just uncontrolled growth of everybody grabbing out of this piece of pie. Now, let me share with you, many years ago in 2001, Democrats, Republicans, taking an idea, allowed charter schools to start in Indiana. That was the last year I was in the legislature. It was actually endorsed by the school board associations, the various teacher groups. It was endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce and had overwhelming support. But the charters were given by two places: the mayor of the city of Indianapolis and Ball State University, and they played on the same playing field as our public schools, and in fact, they were considered public schools. I have people come up to me today from those charter schools saying, we've got these for-profit charter schools out there, and they're taking money, and we know they're taking money. Schools ought not be sources of income for a corporation. Schools are about educating and learning. These for-profit charter schools are hurting this entire public schools, public charter schools, and those we have seen close at a moment's notice. We've seen them close in Fort Wayne. We've seen them close in Indianapolis. When people talk about all of this, do remember that 70 of our 92 counties have nothing but public schools in Indiana. That over 1 million of our students are enrolled in public schools, and only about 80,000 in parochial and Christian faith-based schools, and less than 50,000 in charter schools. The voucher program started where you had to go 1 year to school, and then you could go into a faith-based school. That's now changed where you can just go. We've seen an increase of $40 million. We can't take that money away from those students. We know that. They have started that path. That would be wrong for us to do that. But we need to step back and have that adult conversation and let people see what it has done to our schools, because they are struggling. And we've got to stop this overall expansion. The money following the student is one thing, and I know I'm kind of getting into the next question, but there are fixed costs that are there that you have to deal with each and every day. So we need to get back to focusing on the pupil. A lot of these ideas came purely based on ideology, and that's how we got in this mess.
Okay. What do you feel is the best way to address accountability and assessment in schools?
All about accountability, as everybody here is. And there are so many different tests and testing methods that we can use that give a more time-friendly report back. I can remember my boys graduated in 2010, 2012 from North Knox, and I remember the ISTEP. You'd give it this year, and they get the results back next year. Well, that's a good idea, isn't it? So how does that benefit the student? How does that benefit the teacher? I've yet to figure that out. It doesn't work. It's not working. And there again, we can do accountability. There are a myriad of tests out there that are less expensive that we can give results back, and that teacher can see what they need to do to make themselves either improve in teaching or in certain areas, or how they can help that child. So we can do it. It's just that we've got a failed system right now.
Last question. How would you approach the issue of adequacy and equity in funding of schools?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that school funding formula is something that is an issue in and of itself, but right now the problem we have had has been with this growth in these other areas. I don't need to tell this group that you're playing on an uneven field. You all run out of money, you're SOL. But I assume I can say that, can't I? You're SOL. If one of these for-profit schools run out of money, they've got a special fund they can come back. What's level about that? You have to budget. Why don't they have to budget? You know, the whole idea of the fixed costs, this always amazed me when I was in the legislature. There would be somebody who would say, well, this school corporation has lost 120 students. And there's 30 kids in a classroom. This means 4 classes. We can do away with 4 teachers. They forget that may be 10 pupils per class, scattered not in one building, but in some cases over 5 or 6 buildings. And those buildings, whether they are full or half full, still costs the same to heat them, still costs the same to cool them, still costs the same to keep the roof on them. So a little common sense, I think, goes a long way, which is something that we seem to be lacking in this. So I think that solves the problem right there.
Well, thank you, John, for being here and sharing your remarks. Please give him one more round.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good day.